When you begin your journey collecting out of instincts, your collection begins to become a mirror for who you are, your values, and the things that you instinctually gravitate towards.
As people who grow up gay, we're often told to be ashamed of our background and our queerness, and so for us, we want to do the opposite. We want to make sure that when people come into this house, they see the beauty of queer love, and they see that it's not that different from anything else. In our collection, we celebrate queer bodies and queer relationships.
We never really thought of ourselves as collectors. It came out of a mutual appreciation for art, for the people around us. It was only, I think, recently where we're like, oh yeah, I guess we're collectors, considering it's become part of our life.
A friend of ours asked us, what is your collection about? We had to kind of stop and think. We're like, what is it about actually? Because 3 years ago when we got married, we didn't think that we would be having these pieces in this house. I think every individual piece was purchased for a very specific reason, and there's a story behind it. When we started to put those stories together, there's a thread there, right? While Benny has a stronger hand in finding it and curating it, every piece that we've bought, we've purchased together.
We're very keen on finding voices that we relate to, and so that extends beyond our sexuality. It comes to our shared values, our beliefs, and our heritage. Personally, for me, I am Chinese Canadian. It's also about the Asian American diaspora experience. When I see works by my friends that I relate to as I meander through my home, I get to be reminded of our shared community.
Most of these pieces, most of these artists, I'm proud to and I hope to own for life. They are not transactional pieces that I hope to flip someday. They are artists that I connected to, that I have common values with, and that now I get to have in my home, and I get to have their energy and their viewpoints kind of influence how I live my everyday life. My name is Cristian. I am from Chile originally, and I grew up in the Midwest. So I like to say that I have a half Latino background, half Midwest white boy background, and the mix of that is me. Before I met Benny, I was very intimidated by the art world. I wanted to collect art, and I loved art, and I thought it was beautiful. But when I would go into a gallery, I'd be very intimidated, and I just didn't know how to interact with the art world, and I didn't know what to buy. So when I met Benny, one of the things that drew me to him was his love and his understanding of art. All these things that I imagine any new collector feels when they first start collecting, all that insecurity just goes away the more you engage with art. And Benny often says artists are here to just capture life and share it. Who doesn't want to experience life more?
I'm Benny Orr, and I am an artist. Academically, I studied architecture, and then for my career for the last 10, 12 years, I've been a creative director, production designer for live entertainment. I was feeling uninspired, and so I would drive myself to museums. I was living in Pennsylvania at the time, and I would just go see shows. I'm not an academic, and I've never studied art history. At first, I was gravitating towards the Matisses and sort of classical ideas of art. That interest in art evolved into contemporary art, finding artists that relate to my identity, my stories, my experiences. As I was going to see shows and posting the things that I liked, it evolved into this larger purpose. Fast forward 7, 8 years of doing that, I'm now finding time to paint for myself, figuring out my own art practice. When your instincts are attuned and you're awake from an observational standpoint, you start seeing beauty in the world around you. Collecting art is one thing, surrounding yourself with beauty that represents you, but seeing beauty in the world around you continuously, always, in your everyday life, in the subways and quiet moments, I think is a side effect of that journey. If you open your eyes in a larger way, you can actually become a happier person. The world becomes more beautiful and joyous to live within.
Living now in this space, I think the biggest thing for me is that it is such a source of inspiration, and it is something that grounds me in a process of creativity and beauty. I work in the corporate world, and I do things like organizational design and analysis on resourcing, and all of that is very analytics driven, it's numbers driven, but there's an art to it as well. And I think I would not be able to flex between both of those things if I didn't have art around me. When I go to work and when I need inspiration, what inspires me is the beauty that I see every day in my house, and I could not live without that inspiration now. I find myself being more creative. I find myself being more open to different ways of thinking about things because I have so much to pull from in my everyday home.
Not only do we have art around our home, the things that we have, our vases, our rugs, our furniture, they're all sort of pieces that speak to the larger collection as a whole. It speaks to who we are, the things that we cherish, what beauty means to us. Collecting and living with art is not necessarily about clout or value. It's about finding images and artworks and objects that enhance the beauty in your life. And whether it is the actual painting itself or a replica or a print, at the end of the day, it doesn't quite matter if you're truly just looking for inspiration to live with.